So, Mr. Clyde, if you're ready, we'll start with you. You're recognized to address whatever amendments you care to. Oh, and let me just add, we'll hold questioning after all your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here today to urge my colleagues to support my amendment to prevent funds appropriated to the Department of Justice from being used to prosecute any candidate for the office of President of the United States prior to the election on November 5th, 2024. If the presidential candidate declared their candidacy on or before the date of enactment of this amendment. Since President Trump announced his first presidential bid in 2015, corrupt actors have utilized the powerful tools of the federal government to smear, discredit, and even accuse him of criminal wrongdoing. From the disproven Russian hoax to countless left-wing media and Democrat Party smear jobs, President Trump's opponents fabricated false narratives throughout his tenure in the White House. And while 2 sham politically charged impeachments, complete with false evidence, fell short, the most egregious abuses of power by his political rivals have arguably come after the completion of his first term in the White House, completely ignoring the ongoing and civil negotiations between the former president's legal team and the National Archives. Then White House Deputy Counsel Jonathan Sue conveyed in a memo to the National Archives that President Biden would not object to waiving President Trump's executive privilege. The White House then issued a special access request to the Federal Bureau of Investigation on behalf of the Department of Justice to raid the home of the former president, conveniently timed just ahead of the 2022 elections, in what may be the most disgusting abuse of power against a political rival in the history of this nation. Now, these same institutions of government kept hidden until after the 2022 elections the serious violations of classified document record-keeping by President Biden while he served as a senator and as vice president. Remember, the president has complete authority to declassify any document he chooses, and senators and vice presidents have no such authority. Additionally, as President Trump's popularity rises, the Biden administration's own Department of Justice has sought 2 sham political prosecutions against him with the sole intention of using the authorities of big government to malign President Biden's greatest political adversary. And don't just take my word for it. Listen to President Biden's own words. In November of 2022, when President Biden was asked by a reporter at the G20 summit how he might assure other world leaders that Donald Trump would not win the White House again, President Biden responded, "We just have to demonstrate that he will not take power if he does run, making sure he, under legitimate efforts of the Constitution, does not become the next president again." So there is little doubt that Biden has done exactly that by directing the full weight of the federal government to stop his political rival in the form of unending, widespread political prosecutions. The first of these abuses of political prosecution was brought against former President Trump by the DOJ Special Counsel Jack Smith, following the FBI's unprecedented raid of the former president's residence at Mar-a-Lago. It involved the bogus accusations surrounding President Trump's possession and declassification of presidential records, and authority afforded to the president by the Presidential Records Act, with no formal notification process required. However, despite being found to have harbored numerous classified documents in the garage of his Delaware mansion and in the closet of his China-funded think tank, the current president received no such armed raid by the FBI, nor has President Biden faced even a rumor of indictment for his apparent violation of classified document statutes while as a senator and as a vice president. Additionally, considering the documents in question were from Joe Biden's time as a senator and vice president, he had no legal authority to possess or declassify any such documents, as President Trump did. Yet the silence surrounding President Biden's apparent violations is deafening. Special Counsel Jack Smith has indicted former President Trump for perfectly legal and constitutionally protected political speech surrounding the 2020 election, an indictment that will set a terrible precedent for future administrations, regardless of political party, in our hyper-polarized political environment. It does not matter if you believe there were issues surrounding the election integrity in 2020 or not. Just as Vice President Gore had every right to challenge the results of the 2000 election and speak freely and openly about his concerns, Mr. Trump is protected by his unalienable First Amendment right to do the same, without government infringement. So my amendment protects the integrity of the 2024 election by empowering the American electorate. We must ensure that voters do not have their voices unjustly silenced in the decision to determine our next president through the malign influence of a rogue regime. That is the people's right. Turning a blind eye to this administration's taxpayer-funded election interference is simply unacceptable. We cannot allow this administration to unilaterally sway the outcome of the 2024 election by prosecuting and potentially locking up the current president's chief political opponent. Therefore, my amendment is not about party politics. In fact, it does not single out President Trump at all. Instead, my amendment applies to all presidential candidates, regardless of party, because no candidate should be faced with election interference through the form of political prosecution. Furthermore, my amendment does not impede any investigative efforts. Ongoing or future investigations may certainly proceed, but taxpayer dollars should not be used to sway elections through political prosecutions. It's imperative that Congress use its power of the purse to protect the integrity of our elections, restore Americans' faith in our government, and dismantle our nation's two-tiered system of justice. I strongly urge my colleagues to support my amendment. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. We'll next go to my good friend from Washington, Mr. Kilmer. But before we do, I just want to express officially and on the record, I very much respect but very much regret your decision to retire from the body. You've been a terrific member throughout your entire career and somebody that we've all worked with on both sides of the aisle. Admire greatly. I wish you much success in whatever it is you do next, but I genuinely regret your departure.
Thank you.